Hi, I'm Michelle Quintner, and I'm here in Ithaca, New York, to talk about an upcoming conference at International Psychotherapy Institute called How the Light Gets In: Contemporary Understanding and Treatment of Trauma. And I will be introducing you to our guest speaker.
Hello, my name is Dominique Scarfone. I am a psychoanalyst in Montreal, and I'm happy to have been invited to this event. We will spend a weekend, I understand, discussing on the basis of a few papers of mine, starting with the issue of trauma in psychoanalysis. But before going into more detail about the conference, I was asked to give you a certain idea of what are my interests in psychoanalysis.
Yes.
Well, briefly stated, I would say that psychoanalysis to me is a discipline in its own right. By this I mean it's not a chapter in the psychology books, it's not a chapter in psychiatry books. It's really a full discipline on its own, in its own right, and it deals with the psyche, with the human psyche, both individual uh, at the individual level and at the level of groups and society, culture. So I think that it's something that interests me mainly on the in the direction that Freud had pointed to when he developed the many aspects of his thinking around clinical issues, but also around societal issues, culture, history, and so on. Presently, I am drawn to a special way of looking at psychoanalysis as a science of the living. It's one of the many sciences of the living, besides psychology and sociology or anthropology, for instance. And in this way, I think that psychoanalysis can contribute in a very specific manner by resuming the work that was uh, bequeathed to us by Freud. So to me, Freud is a very important author to go back to, as you know, in the French tradition started by Lacan, we like to go back to Freud. Uh, but it's not just a slogan. It's really considering, and this is my personal view of Freud, to consider him a classic, a classic that is an author whom, when you read him for the first time, you think, oh, I already knew that because it had already permeated the culture, so that you feel that you already know what he's talking about. But when you read it the second time or the third time around, then you discover that hadn't really read him, and that there is so much more to discover, or at least so much more to think about from what Freud, warts and all. I mean, Freud also made mistakes. Don't get me wrong. I'm not asking that we celebrate Freud as a perfect guru, not at all, but that there is so much still to work on the basis of what Freud brought in. So this is why I have gone back, to, for instance, to the theory of trauma,
Mhm.
um, which I will be discussing during the weekend on the basis of two papers at least devoted to trauma. In the first one, and this is where the title of the whole weekend was found, is on in discovering that trauma is truly woven into our psychic life. That it's not only something that happens and that breaks in the mind, but really a foundational. There is trauma at the foundations of the psyche as well, and this what made me cite Leonard Cohen, a fellow Montrealer, who in a beautiful song called Anthem ended by saying, there is a crack in everything. So you could translate trauma, a crack in everything, and that's how the light gets in.
Oh,
So this is one aspect, and the other aspect is again in the full Freudian tradition to look back, but with new perspectives and new, very contemporary contributions. Look at how the Freudian method, the classic Freudian method of free associations, is still today very up to date. And how it is important to heed what Freud had really to say about the method of free association and free hovering attention, because it is really a specific aspect of psychoanalysis without which I think we risk of missing what was Freud's discovery about, really.
so you'll be speaking both about theory and technique, both about theory.
Although I prefer to speak of method rather than technique, I will explain what difference I find between technique and method. But yes, I will look at also at the practical aspect of metapsychology, because to me, Freudian metapsychology is not, first of all, a theory. It's a point of view. It's a perspective we adopt when looking at psychical events. So it's very clinical in my view, and I will try to show that as well. And one major aspect that this will also take in during the weekend, I think perhaps with one of the final papers, is the question of transference, which of course is a cornerstone of our practice. So we will be looking into that as well.
Great. Well, I'm certainly looking forward to hearing more, and you tempted me about the distinction between method and technique. So thank you so much.
My pleasure.